I call to order the meeting of the Select Board on Monday, June 15th at 5:30 p.m. This meeting will be video and audio, video recorded and broadcast over local access channel 8 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. And we're going to start with public comment. Is there anyone? Come on down, Dave.
Okay, let him go.
Hi, Dave Hobbs, 190 Sparrowhawk Lane.
Is the little green light on for that
Green.
microphone? Okay, sweet. Sorry. Continue.
That's okay. I couldn't see a green light. I'm very concerned about the intersection of Old Orchard and Nauset. I live on Sparrowhawk, which is right around the corner. And we brought this up over 8 years ago, and we were told that it was in engineering. You had the same problem on Massasoit and Bridge, and you put up 3 stop signs. I can't believe the engineering took 8 years for that to happen. And I can't believe it cost more than maybe a couple $1,000s at most. Everyone on our street that we have talked to has nearly been hit by trying to get out onto Old Orchard. They come around on Nauset at 35, 40 miles an hour, and there's only 50 feet between that and Sparrowhawk. My wife has almost been hit a half a dozen times. I've had a couple of close calls. But I think it's unreasonable and unfair to let something that dangerous keep going. I mean, a couple Jersey barriers and a couple stop signs and it's done. You don't have to hire some engineer at $20,000 a year to look at it. I just think it's pretty unreasonable, and it's been literally 8 years since we brought this up before. So that's all. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have public comment or select board comments?
Yeah, I just have one. We received an email request from someone in the public who gave an email address that did not work, complaining about the fact that we voted to sign a contract on the wastewater treatment plant that did not include an HVAC system underneath the cover we're putting on the tanks. And I just wanted to explain, I was going to explain to him, sent an email that didn't go, that our consultants disagreed on whether it was needed. We could add it later. I personally went to Orleans, which doesn't even have a cover, and there was no odor on the open tanks. And so we made a promise to the residents around the DPW that we would put a cover on, and it's a heavy cover. It's not a pool cover. It's a heavy cover with a door that they have to open to get into, which will, not only that, there's a huge HVAC system within the treatment facility to take care of odors. So we did this with our eyes open, and we didn't vote to allow smells to go around the DPW area. So I just wanted to say that to the individual who gave us an invalid email address. Thanks.
I have a request, actually. Hopefully this is appropriate. As follow-up to the dangerous dog hearing last week, there were certain requirements that were imposed with a date certain of July 20th. So I just wanted to make sure that we hear from our ACO on progress to date at our July 20th Select Board meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. We are going to move on to the public hearing, which is a transfer of all alcohol license for 4 Points by Sheridan. The Town of Eastham will hold a public hearing at 5:30 p.m. Monday, June 15th, 2026 at the Eastham Town Hall in the Earle Mountain Room. 2500 State Highway, and by remote participation on the transfer of all alcohol license for Eastham, MA, FMB, LLC, DBA, 4 Points by Sheridan. The link to join this meeting will be published as part of the agenda for the select board meeting on today and can be found at the town's website. All right. Is that enough for the opening of the hearing?
Yep.
Okay.
So there's a transfer of the property from one owner to the next, and I believe the attorney for the owners is attending the meeting. If you raise your hand, we can promote you to the meeting.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you, board. I'm certainly happy to give the presentation. I don't believe that our clients need to give any testimonies to the board, but if they do, I just want to let you know that both Aneri Patel and Yash Patel, who are the two principals, are also available. I'm not sure whether you want to add them as panelists now or have me just give the presentation, then we could take it from there.
You can just give the presentation. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, be happy to. So before the board, this is the transfer of the all alcohol license at 3800 State Highway in Eastham, which is the 4 Points by Sheridan. Exath Corp. It's comprised of two shareholders, Yash Patel and Aneri Patel. They'll be the two principals of the corporation. Yash Patel is the license manager because the ABCC essentially only allows for you to have one license manager. But each of these individuals will be there overseeing the operation. It states 40 hours. I'm sure knowing their business, it'll be a lot more than that. But this is essentially the transfer of the all alcohol license, which is currently in operation at the Sheraton. These folks will be taking over that operation. There are no changes to the layout of the business. So as of right now, the license covers the entire establishment. We'll be just taking over the existing parameters of that license. Both Yash and Aneri grew up in the hospitality industry. Their families have been in this industry either through motels, hotels, owning liquor stores across Cape Cod. So certainly a very experienced ownership group coming in that understands all the rules and responsibilities and importance of the sale of alcohol. Both of individuals are alcohol tip certified, have gone through all of their training. They would require that any employees of the operation be alcohol trained as well. But essentially, this is just a transfer of the existing license as the hotel is changing hands. With that, I can certainly answer any questions the board may have. And I said, Aneri and Yash are both available as well.
Does the board have any questions?
Yeah, just one. This is the hotel or the restaurant or both?
So the license encompasses the entire hotel. So the main focus of it obviously is the restaurant itself. That's where the point of sale will occur for the alcohol. It would also cover, some of the banquet areas, on the establishment as well. But as of right now, the license itself covers the entire establishment, and that's what would be transferred to these folks as well.
Does anyone from the public have any questions? Okay.
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yes, everything looks like it's in order in all the papers and understand what was said. I move that we accept the transfer of the all alcohol license to what is the name of the corporation? Excuse me. To
Exath Corp.
Exath Corp. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you very much. As I was searching for that,
Sorry,
please
I
forgive
didn't
me.
want you to keep have to search.
Thank you. You saved me. So that's my motion.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, passes.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Okay, we're going to move on to appointments. which it's going to be Paul Lagg, Town Planner, with the Zoning Task Force charge and topic list work plan for 2026 and 2027. And I'm going to do a little spiel of how much I adore the Zoning Task Force. I have been immensely proud of this committee and the work that it has accomplished in the number of years it's been around. It's not an easy undertaking. Zoning is complicated. I would say possibly it's even a little tedious. So it takes a special person and definitely a special group of people who are willing to go into that work. And it's immensely important work. I would say that Eastham is ahead of many communities in taking on some of these topics that the Zoning Task Force has taken on for us. And I brag about you all as anytime I get the opportunity to. Yeah, I really can't say enough about the work that you've done, and the diligence and the speed is also unparalleled. And so I am immensely proud. And presumably, Mary, are you going to present with us, or are you here to say goodbye to us?
We're going to co-present.
Okay, so you're not quite done. And I want to thank you, Mary.
Oh, thank
we
you.
received your letter.
Yes.
It's not in our packet.
Yes.
You have also been a dedicated member on this committee, and through your, in some ways, you've been much of the face, but I appreciate your leadership and your drive and your commitment to this work, because you all have taken on some really big topics, and I can't thank you enough. So we will miss having you on the committee and look forward to seeing what you get into after. And with that, you can start your presentation.
All right, well, thank you very much for those kind words. And I, too, am greatly appreciative of the work the task force has done in helping staff over these last few years, and particularly Mary's leadership as chair over those past years. We just got a couple of quick slides just to help us go through this, and I'll let, we debriefed after town meeting, and we just wanted to go through this. I'll let Mary walk through this slide, and I guess we want to update you and debrief from this, update you on where the task force feels it's headed and next round of work, but also get input and guidance from the board to make sure that we're on track and we're all on the same page, and then go from there. So I'll turn it over to Mary.
Okay. Well, thank you. And thank you, Suzanne, for those kind words. We did meet after town meeting to sort of debrief. We had quite a record up until town meeting. We had 20 zoning amendments pass overwhelmingly, and then of the 8 that we put forward this year, 3 passed. And several of them were tied together, so once they were deferred, that happened. But we took a time as a group to step back, and so let me just tell you a few of the things we thought about. Ideas for public engagement. Clearly, we felt that we should have more public engagement. For the record, everything we did this year is what we had done in the past 5 years, so this year just, got upended a little bit. But we recognize certain things, that zoning is very, very complex, and we need to think about communication. And this year we had 2 hiccups, or 1 hiccup in terms of the misprinting that caused a problem. And then we were trying to desperately clean up the inclusionary zoning, which we did, and that's all good for the town, except we had 9 pages of strikeout language, which I think, people were just, tuning out at certain points. We talked a lot about trying to distill what we're doing in terms of like 3 slides. What is the problem? How are we trying to solve the problem? And what are we not changing? Again, more public information sessions. One of the ideas coming out of engagement we really thought about is we learned that the town of Orleans, when they do zoning, actually have they limit it to these 1 or 2 minute presentations, these video presentations, before the debate happens. And so, again, that may be an idea, we'd have to engage with the town moderator to do that. But that really got us thinking about the fact that if we had 3 or 4 amendments in the future, the notion that you could do a 1 or 2 minute video, even if it's not live action, but but screens with narration and just being able to distill it so that if that happens, say, by the beginning of the year, for whatever, we could run those through social media and in lots of places. So again, building understanding, I think, was our big takeaway. We did a lot of work with the ZBA and the planning board this year, but again, I think we came out of that. We had a couple workshops, one in the fall and one in January, and I think going forward, we thought there was real value in those and actually might do more. And again, I think that this year, Jackie and I sort of debriefed a little bit, and, with the budget being so contentious, and then wastewater, honestly, and I'm put words in Jackie's mouth, she's just sort of said, we sort of didn't keep an eye on sort of the mechanics of some of the zoning going through, So I think for the task force, closer coordination with the town manager next year would be useful. So those are some of the big takeaways. I think communication is probably the biggest takeaway we had, and spending time planning that, and also planning the length of the agenda. And I think that's one of the things you'll see tonight is Paul and Jackie took a lead at really analyzing things of how many zoning amendments do we put before the town each year, because we really have to maybe prioritize more because there's only so much people can absorb. But I'll close by saying I do have an enormous faith in the people of Eastham because, I watched for the last several years wastewater, which is an enormously complicated issue. There was a very deliberate communication plan, and I think when you see that communication plan, you end up with success and understanding. Even if people aren't thrilled about everything, they understand it. And so I think that's sort of the mantra we'd like to think about for zoning going forward. Thank you.
All right, so we wanted to go through, we have a proposed list of topics and then some other pending topics. And the process we went through, Jackie O'Rourke and I went through, utilized a very useful decision-making worksheet that Jackie devised actually to help us kind of filter and prioritize and kind of objectively look at what are the topics that have been on the to-do list and how, what order they be in. And we tried to look at, is there a legal mandate that we're required to do this? Is there a directive directly from the select board? Or is there some active issue that is leaving the town open to legal issues or other regulatory issues? If the answer to those were yes, those went to the top of the list. Beyond that, we looked at, what's the level of the problem? Is it a consistent zoning enforcement request or something that keeps causing issues? Is it aligned with the strategic plan? Is it in the strategic plan, or is it aligned with another management plan of the towns? We looked at issues with level of effort. So what's our staff capacity, our bandwidth to do this? Are there model bylaws already existent? Are other towns done this that we can get a head start and do that? We looked at that. And also, what is the familiarity with these concepts with the town? Is this an issue that really needs to be socialized, get input, take the temperature of the community, and analyze that? So that was, and then we talked about that with the task force. So that's really where we came up with the list that's in front of you now. And again, we want to go through this, get feedback from the select board, make sure we're on the same page, get any guidance and so forth. So the proposed topics, we are really suggesting that we limit it to really 3. Tiny houses and undersized lots, again, those are things that the town is obligated to make zoning amendments for because we have opted into the seasonal communities designation. And so we have a deadline of 2028 to do that. So that kind of obligates us. The third item is the site coverage floor area ratio, and that was the amendment that was on the warrant for this year. We decided to postpone it. We feel that's still an important topic that we should finish. Number one, because the changes from that amendment really came out of earlier work that the task force did when we established the site coverage limits. But once we work with the bylaw and the planning board works with the bylaw, you find the loose ends and the issues with it. So this one was really about improving on the bylaw changes we made a few years ago, how the planning board really utilizes that. And the board continues to be hindered a bit in trying to find the balance in their site plan review about how do you balance the private property rights and the desires and dreams of the property owners and wanting to do these projects with the bylaw and the character of the neighborhood and the community. And so that amendment was really geared towards trying to make it more objective and smooth out some of those issues. So we feel that that was still an important piece, that we should go back and finish that work. Also, I do anticipate that as we get into tiny houses and undersized lots, it will impact the floor area site coverage ratio. So it's almost a bit of a happy accident that we have a little more time to go back and look at that so we can kind of finish that. So in a way, all three items, they do kind of work together as a package that I think will make sense cohesively at town meeting. The last one, again, I always leave room for, there's always what I call housekeeping issues, little definitional changes or little tweaks in wording. So I always say, those are kind of low-hanging fruit. So those are the three topics for May 2027. The other list are the pending topics. And after we discussed this with the task force and Jackie and I went through this, I think these are things that they are, except for the solar bylaw, they are in the strategic plan. But they require a little more time to really do it right, to do the analysis, again, as I said, to socialize these topics, get the temperature of the community, get feedback, understand what the pros and cons are going to be so that we can do the necessary work. So these things, we say we'll be on track for, 1 year, 2 years out after the 27 meeting. And, so obviously in order to do that work, we don't want to front load this coming year and not have time to do the background research on these longer terms. So that's kind of the rationale between the two lists. I think I will pause there, and again, just feedback, comments. I think going forward, it's important that we understand that from the task force and staff perspective, like these are the topics that the select board supports and they want us to be working on it, because again, the task force is advisory to the select board. And so we want to make sure that we have that order of operations ready.
Bob?
I like the list a lot. I mean, it's simple and I think it would be easily understood. And I think the communication aspect of all this is really where we need to do better. The royal we. I'm hearing pushback from people about the revised floor plan or size of house to lot size, in that they're going down again. The numbers are going down. And I'd like to understand why. I mean, I think the new formula is simpler, better, easier to understand. Why is that the trend? I thought we had kind of resolved that problem. Is the planning board getting into areas where these houses are still too big, or why is there a push to make them even smaller?
Yeah. So the issue that keeps coming up in planning board review is that we have established these hard limits, the max dwelling sizes. But we have projects that come in almost every time that the project is under the cap, but it's significantly larger than the rest of the neighborhood. A lot of time, so some of these older neighborhoods where you get the cottages, the seasonal, smaller, more modest houses, and then the first owner in that area that wants to, retire or whatever, redo their house, maximize their use of the land, they kind of set the tone for the rest of the neighborhood. And so the planning board has been struggling. That's that balance I was talking about, is how do you regulate something where I'm under the cap, this is as big as you said I can go, and I'm under that, but I'm still really dwarfing the rest of the neighborhood. And that will, like I said, and the issue has been how does the board utilize the site plan review criteria to try to shape that project? And it's just been difficult. And so the thought behind adjusting the numbers was really to look at the numbers and see if we can recalibrate that chart so that no matter what the applicant comes in with, if they're at the max, that those numbers would be in a place where the board would feel that it's not going to be out of line with the neighborhood, and so that they didn't have to wrestle with the size of the house. Because as they go through the planning board review process, we just kept coming up with, how do we deal with the size of the house? We can talk about landscaping and where the driveway is and all these other things that shape the project, but if the essential issue is the house is just, in someone's opinion, too large for the rest of the neighborhood. So we're trying to calibrate so that we could kind of take the worry about the square footage of the house out of it. And so even if you're at the max, that's fine. We can turn our attention to shaping the rest of the project, the orientation, the landscaping, the rest of it. So that was really the thought process behind trying to recalibrate that. What we tried to do to achieve that was look at what the development trends have been, what the size of the buildings coming in for building permits, and what the approvals for planning board have been. So the numbers were really calibrated as to what we saw coming in before the boards and for the building permits. So it was really in line with that, is what our data showed. And it really only, correct me, I think only affected the size getting smaller for one category of lot size, because all these things are calibrated by lot size. So the smallest category of lot size, basically lots up to 10,000 square feet, 15,000, those did see a reduction in the maximum dwelling size. But the rest of them were the same, essentially. If I'm missing anything, please let me know.
Well, I mean, Bob, as you know, when we first did the calculations last time, site coverage had historically been at about 11%, and we were seeing it rise up to, and in the last year, it was close to 18%. So that's when we got the new numbers. When we first did those numbers, the committee was very concerned about those smallest lots, of not trying to limit them so severely. So in fact, instead of going to 11% or 14%, we at the time made the smallest lots 20% site coverage,
Right.
thinking we'd get more flexibility. The unintended consequence is the most contentious neighborhood disputes are in those lots. It's being viewed as too big. And so that was one of the pressures that we looked at. As Paul indicated, the planning board is still struggling. We wrote language, enabling language, that said maximum site coverage is one criteria that needs to be looked at in the context of the neighborhood character, and getting to that neighborhood character issue to try to reduce or shape projects continues to be a challenge. And the only other thing at the other end was the reduction of the 6,000 square foot maximum to 5,000. And the history of that is literally from the time we put that higher limit in, we've had complaints about that higher limit. There's 8 homes above 5,000 right now. So again, it's the notion of, and they would obviously be grandfathered, do you recalibrate the max at this point before it gets too far? So that was some of the nuance, and as Paul said, it was, trying to achieve this balance as well as the math. And I would say a couple of the task force members, Martin and others, Tom, we got engineers on the committee. It was great. They did all the math. It was so good. But they really looked at the calculations and where there were inequities and how do you streamline everything so it's very clear and predictable. So I think that, wherever the numbers end up, I think having that methodology in terms of calculation will be really important. And as Paul said, because we have to look at tiny houses and undersized lots, in some ways this whole issue of what should be the maximum on these smaller lots will get a lot more attention this year.
One other thing I wanted to note, just because
Thank you.
it wasn't the highlight of the amendment, but it's an important part, is we propose these changes to the site coverage limits, but we also propose streamlining the regulatory thresholds to try to make it less intensive. So like for smaller projects, that they basically, most of the projects, smaller projects would not need to go to planning board unless they had some kind of pre-existing nonconformity that needed to be looked at. So, you know, we would, that was, you know, it wasn't the focus, but it was, you know, that's an important thing. We're trying to balance, like, again, it's understanding what the needs and desires are for this to maintain community character, but also trying to see, okay, can we balance that off with, okay, we got some new limitations, but we're opening up, lessening the requirements for a regulatory process to make it less expensive and quicker. So,
And the final point I'll make is just, when we did this in 2023, one of the ways, while we were trying to limit the massing, the external massing that you know is visibly apparent, we tried to maximize the internal development. So before, site coverage used to include your basement, your attics, wraparound porches, sheds. We excluded those with the notion of, you know, people can maximize, you know, on most homes, you're picking up at least 1,000 square feet in your basement and then plus your attic, maximizing the amount of internal development they had while trying to put some safeguards on the massing. So that happened, you know, again, it happened a couple of years ago, and people, you know, that's not top of their mind, I understand that. But I just think as far as our rationale, that was part of the strategy.
I remember that. When did the 300 feet, you know, perimeter come into play? Is that this year?
No, that was historic.
Okay, so.
That was the abutter notification.
Right, so is that the real issue, and you're getting a lot more pushback on the smaller homes? When you're saying, I mean, you're saying that those are the ones where we tried to, on the smaller lots, where we tried to give people a break, because even if they put in a bathroom, it was gonna be 15% of their lot, you know, something like that. So you're saying that backfired?
It's the most contentious.
Okay.
You know, I mean, you know, it's just because they're so small and the homes are so small that even,
Right.
it just seems.
yeah, but that was the balance that I was mentioning, like calibrating those maximum sizes so that on those smaller lots, so that, you know, in general, the planning board would be comfortable with those.
Right.
But also a lot of those properties would be the ones that probably would be exempt from having to go to planning board
Okay.
to try to streamline that. So it's like, you're not going to planning board, so you're not going to the project's not going to get scrutinized unless you have a nonconformity of some sort. But the offset is that we know that house, that's project's only going to be a certain height, a certain size. And that was, you know, that's the balance and the reason for the recalibration of the numbers.
I thought the new formula was a lot simpler.
Right. In reality, the way that we've done we've had site coverage, site plan review since 2007, and the way we've always done it, it's really more akin to floor area ratio. We've just never called it that. And so that was the other part, just kind of cleaning up and standardizing terms and trying to simplify the formula and really treat it the way that it's commonly known. Our site coverage, most towns that have anything like this, they're concerned with the building footprint. And our bylaw has always been worded that we deal with the massing and the bulk of it and the gross floor area. And so that was another part of trying to streamline this, straighten it out, and make it more intuitive.
I think we're going to need communication on this one.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Is your comment on this one?
Yeah, on this, it's just a question for
Go for it.
Paul. Is part of the issue that the planning board has is you have an objective number and a subjective, a second criteria. So when people come in with a plan, they're pushing just the objective number, and so that you're almost eliminating the subjective character of the neighborhood issue. Is that the kind of push that they're receiving, and they have to figure out how to get past that?
That's part of it. I think, in general, the difficulty in doing site plan review is that it is subjective, no matter how, and that's what
Yeah.
we've been trying to do, is try to make the bylaw language less and less subjective. But at the end of it, it's never going to be perfect, because you're just, the whole point of site plan review is it is shaping the project. And the fact that we have site plan review and that this community has adopted that means that this community wants the planning board, for good or ill, to be involved in what people do on their private property, the kinds of houses they build, what it looks like, because of the potential negative impacts on the neighborhood. And so that gets you into subjective areas from the get-go. But like I say, we're trying to make it less subjective by building in these limits. The limits was
Right.
one idea. So, and again, the recalibration, that, because as Mary said, it is hard, because we're saying here's the limit, but you still may not be able to build to the limit if you're way above the average of the rest of the
Right.
neighborhood. So we're trying to smooth that out and make it more objective and more predictable. So I would say there's two things too. There's the bylaw changes, but also the internal process that the board is going through. Like Jackie has developed some frameworks to help the board go through in a logical, objective manner and match the project parameters against what the bylaw language says, so that we can keep things logical and predictable. It helps the board, it helps the applicants and the engineers and the architects if they know what the expectations are. But you still get into this gray area that is a work in progress.
So the object is, we're going to try and help the board and help me when I want to build something, some guidance to me, so that, to make it a smoother process. Go to it.
All right.
Do you have any comments on this particular one? Hope, sorry.
Wait, this particular slide or this particular?
This particular topic, mostly because I have a comment on this particular topic, but I do want your comments on the rest of it.
Okay, go.
Yeah, I would say that this maybe is a good example of, we've all been in it for so long that I think even myself, I didn't forget, like I knew what we did 2 years ago. And so when you came to me and you were like, we are trying to clean this up to make it easier for residents and easier for the planning board, I was like, that feels like a no-brainer to me. And I didn't realize that we should have done more outreach on what that meant. And to your point of like, what are we changing and what are we not changing? I think people are very interested in like, what are you not changing? So I would say that this is probably one of those ones that we didn't know until we knew that it needed to be revisited. I feel like I got the vibe that some people, maybe this was the first time they had seen it, so they thought it was the first go of it and didn't realize we had already done the bulk of that work and the bulk of that outreach, and this was meant to clean it up. So also thank you for taking that on, because it is certainly challenging. Yeah. Are there more comments on the topics or the pending topics, questions, Hope?
Yes. First, I do want to start with thank you, Mary. Like, sorry we didn't get to work longer together, but amazing dedication and discipline and diligence.
Vote no on
So-
accepting a resignation.
Oh, sorry, and okay, in case we
case
don't
you
vote,
accept it.
in case you don't move on, but if you do move on, I wish you all the best,
Thank
so. A couple of things. One is just a process, talking about communications. So we'll discuss tonight what we think should be prioritized here, but when is the opportunity to present this publicly and begin the process of public engagement on what's going to happen in the coming year? Then I have another comment, but let me stop there.
I mean, I think we could start right away, just generally getting the word out that, you know, these are the pending topics, just as a public information piece. And letting the public know that, you know, when the task force meets and how to stay updated on things and so forth. That basic info we can start doing right away.
Okay, no, I think that would,
Would just also say, one of the things we had talked about, Paul, I don't know if you remember, we had a good discussion about doing similar to what we do with the budget and the finance committee, is we go up to town meeting and start working our way back, and what are the dates and timelines we need to meet to make sure that all the information gets out there in a timely manner in advance, that people have time to socialize it and to accept it and make a decision on it, ask questions. And so that'll certainly be part of it too, kind of taking a dual track. You got the finance, the budget track, but now we got the zoning changes and working back from town meeting and trying to line everything up so that it has a good process.
Yeah, no, I think that's all great, and I just want to make sure that the public engagement, the communication begins as quickly as possible. That would.
And that would be helpful. I mean, we saw the flyer opposing this like 2 days ahead of time. We had never heard that. And even just, we could have responded to a number of points, property values will plummet. Well, since we did the first limits, property values have gone up 60%. So I'm not sure the size limit and the market increase is totally calibrated. But, the one thing I would say about the pending topics, and again, I won't be here for those, but similar with when we did the Northeastern Business District, we got into that in a few months and realized there's a lot of research that we needed to do. So we came back to the board in December and said, this is going to take us 2 years. We've got to do a year of research, and then the following year really think about a zoning amendment. And single to multifamily conversion and form-based codes for District D. District D is the town center here. We'd like to do that we'd like to go on a 2-year process and maybe go to the Cape Cod Commission, maybe get some technical expertise, really do some in-depth land analysis. There's both some vulnerability, in my opinion, I think there's some vulnerabilities in those 2 areas for the town, and there's also some great opportunities for the town. So I think those are 2 very important things that I think would be good to research. And some of the others, I think, sometimes it's issues when they are ripe. When we first did the size limitations, there had been, actually, it's sort of interesting because we were limiting it the 6,000 square foot. There was a 5,900 square foot property that was being built, and people went crazy. And so when we first went to town meeting 2 years ago, there were abutters coming up saying, we need this, we need this, we need this. So there was a moment where people really marshaled around this, we need to do something. And we've got to figure out with some of our other projects, how do we marshal that enthusiasm?
Okay. The one other thing that I would, and here I'm speaking with not enough knowledge and background, but coastal resiliency, I would really prioritize that. And even if you put it on a 2-year time frame, whatever it is, I think that's incredibly important, and it will help the people who live in the town, and the town itself, as we watch, as we are watching 2 properties kind of drop over the edge, and it's going to happen. And I think the better prepared we can be, the better outcomes for everybody. Mm-hmm. It will be more of a win-win. So again, I don't know what is behind that, how much work is behind that to actually make a change there, but I would really strongly encourage that we all think about that.
Well, and I'll speak for myself here because I went to the coastal resiliency presentations, and the scientific presentation about the area in the bay, the vulnerability area where there's 300 properties, that was very alarming to me, that report, and it's something that I really feel like that needs to get into the consciousness of people in this town. But from a zoning perspective, if you were to go to look at those 300 properties and say, should we do something special here, you can't just pick 300 properties. You'd have to do an overlay district. So we'd have to go to town and say, we need an overlay district for these 300 properties because we want to have some sort of special zoning. As you can imagine, creating an overlay district for coastal property, I just think the organizing, the politics, the communication, all of that, it's not that we shouldn't do it. We absolutely should do it, but that's going to take an enormous amount of effort. It's you can't do it a little bit. It's sort of the town needs to sort of say, if it's a priority, we're going to go all in because it's going to be a lot.
I think it's important enough to focus on it.
Yep.
I really do. And again, I'm recognizing that it's an incredible amount of work.
Yep.
But it's incredibly important.
Add to that.
Yeah.
I think there are some nearby towns working on developing coastal resiliency regulations and bylaws, and I think they're working with a consultant in the Cape Cod Commission to help with that. So I think maybe looking at a consultant to sort of help with the outreach and education would be beneficial as well.
Yeah, there are model bylaws that the commission has
Yep.
developed, and my thought was that it would make sense to do the zoning work. The model bylaws, there's a zoning piece and there's a conservation piece, and trying to do those at the same time and coordinate them so that they're in alignment, to me made sense, but.
No, that makes sense. It also, in a similar vein, and we'll get to this, I think, but the tiny lots, the tiny houses, and the larger housing production plan, whatever is going to happen, I think we need to make sure that those things are in lockstep as well.
Jerry, do you have other comments? So in this topic list of pending topics, are these all multiple year track ones? Or I think okay, so coastal resiliency bylaw, multiple years. Form-based code light for District E, also multiple years? And are they all multiple year projects? I mean, I would think all of them are multiple year projects, and then you guys get a lot done in 1 year. So
I would say they're all items that I don't believe can be done
in 1 year.
for May 2027 and done, done right with the due diligence and the background. So beyond that, it's really a question of the priority
Okay.
and how important it is and how quickly the select board wants to see action on that. That'll help me gauge the level of effort we need to do, whether it's staff or we need to engage with a select, outside assistance or so. Again, this task force and the work it does is advisory to the select board. And, there's a number of ways that zoning amendments can make their way to town meeting. This group was set up to really focus on the things that were important to the select board and this board's priorities. That doesn't mean that there won't be other things that we'll continue to work on. The planning board may identify issues. Again, staff, we always come up with miscellaneous things that need to be cleaned up. But again, this discussion is really like try to help calibrate the level of effort and the timing, how quickly we need to move on this.
Okay, you raised something, Paul. Okay, so the proposed priority topics for a town meeting for 2027, I mean, the top two we're required to do, we have a 2028 deadline on it, so I would think, from my opinion, yes, if there's a priority to this advisory, yes, advise us before town meeting 2027 so we can get these things on it. Well, are you looking for in the pending topics, are you looking for guidance from us today on what the priorities are here and what you're looking at? I think I need a little bit more understanding of what we're doing on pending topics. You're going to do the priority ones, and then that's a top thing for you. So while you're doing those, what's happening to these pending ones? What do you want some priorities from us to start looking at it, have people look at it? I mean, what's the request here?
All right, well, first, I wouldn't put the board on the spot right now. I mean,
Okay.
whatever input the board's comfortable doing now, that's fine. If you need more time, we can always come back. I think some guidance on the pending topics as far as what order would you put these in? Our work plan was really to start the behind-the-scenes analysis, research, figure out if we need to have any expertise, and if we do, get that going, and start plugging away at this. And, really what we've done is once we start doing that, then we'll be in a position to know what the pros and cons are and be able to come back and, and update the board to say, we started looking at commercial uses in residential. This is what it's shaping up to be. These are the things we're going to have to deal with. Is that still something we're ready and willing to take on now? Or, so to be able to give the board more,
Right.
more information. So we don't, what I tried to do here is the pertinent issues is really just trying to outline the broad things. Like, we get into this topic, these are the things to expect. We're going to have analysis and discussions about what's the impact on property rights versus community. Some of these are going to impact town, they're going to have financial impacts on revenues.
Right.
And, so we want to make sure we're all on the same page as we go down this road, and then, be able to check in and say, okay, keep going or not yet.
Paul, is the list, the pending topics, is that a list in priorities as it is, or those are just, here they are?
They're not in any, I didn't put them in any particular order.
In order, okay.
Something I'd add is, in my mind, the pending topics was generally they're there and they're going to be working on them unless, you had some overarching problem or issue.
Okay.
Generally, they're working on them. But that being said, we are getting an update. Paul's done a nice job of linking each of these to the strategic plan, and we're getting an update on the strategic plan on July 6th. And we're going to take that, and what we're going to try to do, I'll schedule with the chair, meetings in July and August on some goal setting, because, a goal of mine, I think, would be to get your goal setting done in advance of the budget being developed, as opposed to after the fact. And so we can link some of these things. If we do need to have funding for a consultant in the budget, that it's in the budget plan and it's linked to one of your goals. So we'll have opportunities to comment on all these things when you go through the strategic plan update and your goal setting process.
Fine, thank you.
Good job.
I will say for the single to multifamily conversion bylaw, if it could, we're going to have a housing update as well. That one was on the list last year, and one of my questions is how applicable to Eastham is it, and how is it different from an ADU in a house? And you don't have to answer those now. Those are the questions that I have about that, to see how much, if it's valuable to continue to pursue it. On paper, I feel like it's valuable to pursue, but if there's only like a handful of houses in town that might apply to, or if you don't actually have any of the public coming in asking for this. So there's some questions that I have regarding that one that I think would be able to help me make a decision about where to put that for pending priorities. And then the coastal resiliency bylaw, I also have just slowly worried about that for years and years. And yeah, the proposed priority topics for town meeting, tiny houses, undersized lots, and then the site coverage floor area ratio seems like a good discrete list to work on. And then we'll try and get you some more answers for the pending topics on how to phase them or prioritize them as it may be.
Yeah, like Rich said, I'll make sure to be, ready if we want to go in depth on any of these when we have the strategic planning and the housing updates, and that will help the board make any decisions they need to make.
Yeah, and again, it's such a valuable committee. I can't thank you enough. Other towns do this work through their planning board or don't do it. So thank you for taking this on for us. Does the board have more comments on this? We have a plan.
Mine is only thank you. And thank you, Mary. I will sadly vote to accept your resignation, but I'll do that.
Paul, did you want to do anything on the charge, or is that all set?
It's really, unless the board has any discussion on it, the charge was amended when the task force first was created. There were some specific items to be looked at, and we've made progress. Everything we've been doing is basically related to that, but it was really more focused on housing issues. Our current charge, it was revised a couple of years ago, and it's really for the task force to look at really anything related to zoning or land use development. So that's where we've kind of branched off into these other issues like the Northeast Ham commercial districts, and that's where you see the form-based code for District D, because we really have a broad umbrella under the charge. So that's how we're operating, but again, because we have this big umbrella, but bringing the list to say, these are the things that we're trying to focus on and make sure that, so I'll just, so unless the board has any thing they want to talk about specifically about the way it's worded or the things in there.
This was an issue that Jamie Dimitri had raised. So I think she had just raised the issue of should we, it's been 5 years now, should we look at the charge? Should we look at the scope? Should we look at the process? Which I think is totally fine, if the board wants to do that. So we did a little brainstorming, but, there's some technical details, like we joke we have lifetime appointments, because we don't have terms, and, certain other things, how we operate. I talked to Rich a lot, in some ways, Rich mentioned the Finance Committee. In looking at the charge, the Finance Committee is probably a very good model, given what the task force is doing, and we can think about how they're structured and, the difference between when they have public meetings and when they have workshops. Some of the difficulty for people getting engaged with us is, as Bob knows, we're head down looking at zoning code and numbers, and, the joke is everyone comes to one meeting and then they leave and they never return because, it's just a technical kind of thing. So how could we be organized differently in a way that might be more engaging? So I think, the task force met and considered some of these things. And, I think if Jamie wants to raise this at a future meeting, I think the task force is ready to sort of engage in that discussion.
I just have one question. On the list of town staff, town manager, issues shall be derived from, and I know that Carolyn is on the board, but given the import and the focus on things that are going to impact housing in the coming year, would you want to add the Affordable Housing Trust or any of the housing committees to that list? Again, in my mind, to ensure that everything's proceeding
Carolyn has
mutually reinforcing, and I know Carolyn's on it, and so maybe that's
she's been
enough.
representing the
Okay.
housing piece of it, but it's
a question.
No, and I think the question of there's been new applicants for the task force. We've been operating. There's a little when we were first established, I guess our charge said 10. We've never had 10 members. Paul and I go back and forth. Have we ever had 9? We know we've had 8. We right now have 6. And my own personal thing is, given the length of our meetings and how much we schedule, if the number of people on it is looked at, I still think you want to err on a smaller group because it's just so hands-on and intensive. 6 may not be the number, but 10 feels a little large. But leave that for future discussion.
Yeah, 5 to 7 is optimal for this. No more than 7, in my opinion, just because the nature of the work and the meetings and.
Right.
Can we take a vote for the proposed priority topics and leave the charge as it is?
Sure, I'm fine with that. As a matter of fact, as I look at the charge, my personal view is to have it broad, because if we make the charge narrow, very narrow, and you find something that's outside, it creates more problems. We have the responsibility and authority to say, no, I don't want you to go there, or I want you to go at this point. So I'm not anywhere near as worried about the charge as Jamie is. I think that if anything, if the board's worried about it, we have to take more of an active role ourselves in giving advice. But I'm in favor, if you want to, I'm in favor of making a motion that we approve the proposed priority topics for annual town meeting 2027 as presented on the slide.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Yep. Just because I think we need more discussion. That's
On
all.
the proposed topics for
On the
2027?
pending topics.
No, this is just
Just on the
for.
proposed.
Just as proposed, okay, yes.
Just for
I'm
the
sorry.
annual town meeting 2027, for the next year, their work for next year,
The left column.
just the left column.
Got it. But is there an opportunity to add anything to that if we get,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we can certainly add stuff. I just want to give the zoning task force
Some direction.
their direction now.
Go.
Okay.
Well, I would
Yeah,
actually say if the board still wants to discuss what the 2027 topics are, I would just say we should wait and have that, then we know we'll have a clean list.
What did
Because-
you want to possibly add?
Coastal resiliency, but maybe not for, but just as a priority topic, maybe parts of it go on the timelines, maybe parts of it don't, and I don't know that answer right now.
So I guess, yeah, I sort of had the question of, so the proposed priority topics is the deliverable to the town meeting, and I wasn't quite sure how much, I guess would be not a lot, of the rest of it, can you do the background research on at the same time? And if the answer is not a lot of it, that's fine.
Well, again, that was the guidance on the pending topics, the priorities. I don't anticipate we can kind of work on all of those things at
Right.
once effectively, so trying to figure out which one, I think we could work on, 2 or 3 simultaneously, but then also knowing which one is the priority so that we make sure we do the most work on the priority of the top 3, if you will, so that but again, the work that we do, it's really, again, it's advisory to the select board, and these are the select board priorities. So if one of those pending topics is something that you want to
Well, I think,
fast track, then
I
that's,
think the motion was on the priority for 27, that's appropriate. As far as pending, I think just the feedback you've given them kind of lets them know what's of that pending topic is their priority, so I think they get it on the coastal resilience. And I think as we go through the summer and talk about goals and strategic plan and all that, maybe we'll get some more, and Paul will be part and parcel of that, so he'll be able to convey your priorities for the pending topics as well, so.
Okay, then I'll change my vote.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And on our end, we can work with town staff to help with the public engagement and outreach side of things. I understand that's probably hard for a resident to jump into one of the meetings when you're like deep in the middle of a zoning language and reviewing it. And so I don't necessarily want to disrupt your work too much to think about how do I then have to make this more accessible to the public when we can find a different format
yeah, I
to
think
do that.
any help
Yeah.
is appreciated, and obviously, I think part of what I want to make sure we do, we work closely with Kayla and make sure, because that's a skill set that she has, being able to distill complicated things into, smaller bite-sized pieces, and we can, but it takes a lot of people on these complicated issues, so I appreciate that.
And some of these, it seems like there's going to be more support needed for the committee to take on, such as the coastal resiliency bylaw. Might
Yeah,
not
I
be-
think I can, when we have the follow-up discussion, I'll be able to fill that in a little bit more. We can look at what the level of effort is. Again, there's model bylaws for a lot of these things too, so that makes a big difference.
It may be in the next iteration, say in the fall, or when Paul and the team have looked, those pending topics, maybe they could be a bridge to talk about how much time, what's involved.
Yep.
Do you need a consultant? So then you have a sense of whether this is a 2-year, some of them may be 3-year projects, but, you could at least get a sense of that.
So I would ask that you come back with some estimate of scope on all of those secondary items, and we can take it from there.
Yep.
And move on.
Which, yeah, we'll come back to this.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Oh, wait, okay, so we did the charge and purpose. Do we need more discussion on the charge?
No?
Or the number of people on it?
I think this was Jamie, this was correct me if I'm wrong, this was the task force reacting to a comment in the town meeting, and I think it was appropriate, and I don't think there's anything here that's earth-shattering personally. I also think that the smaller, when you get to these meetings that are, 2 a week, down to the wire, you can't herd the cats. You have to have a group of people that are tight as a drum.
So I guess I said I wouldn't put the board on the spot, but I'm going to. I guess, is the board comfortable with 7 members as kind of the working cap right now? Because we have some
I am.
vacancies to fill, and I think that will help us and the search committee folks if.
I think we had a conversation about this a little while ago. I don't necessarily think it's a good idea to, quantify the number of people with a maximum. I just don't. So I think that, you have some leeway here. I think that you could do up to 10 if you wanted, or up to some number, but, you might have 2 or 3 people who are great candidates, and you go through years where the well is dry. And so you might want to add a couple people because they happen to come to you at the same time. So I don't necessarily think that we should be codifying maximums on these, but that's just my opinion.
I just looked this up today, actually, for a question that we got, and the select board, per the charter, has the opportunity, if it's not codified in a bylaw or otherwise in the charter, so like this committee is kind of ad hoc, you have the discretion to add or remove membership from a committee. So, if you pick, 7's the right number or 9's the right number, you can easily say that.
At virtually any time, we could
Right.
do that, yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
in your court.
Right. And I also think there's no worry about having an even number, because if you have a 4-3 vote in the zoning task force, it's probably not worth bringing to the town meeting, because it's hard to understand and it probably won't go. You need 2/3 vote on most of them, so you've got 6 to 10, and Rich says we could change it if you decide you want a different number, and you come before us and ask. So it's 7's fine, 8's fine, 6 is fine. If you want to go to 5, you come back and say, hey, we want 5, and ask.
Is your quorum based off of your maximum?
Quorum is 50% plus 1.
Okay, so,
Then the number of people
That are on
appointed
it.
that are active members.
okay, all right, okay. Active members, not seats.
Right, so
Got
we've
it.
had
Okay.
6.
All right.
We've been going on
Okay,
for
all right.
6.
Sorry if that was, did that answer your question? 7 seems good, 10 seems like a lot. And I'm not sure if we would get 10 people anyway.
So task force will be looking to try to have 7 members for now.
Right.
Okay,
Thanks, Paul.
thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
I just want to thank Paul and Jackie Paul for the last 5 years, Jackie the last couple, and the entire task force. As Hope said, I've been the face of this, but as Bob knows, there's 6 people that are sitting around a table for hours and hours, really doing a lot of work. And so I leave for personal reasons just because I kind of hit a wall, and I need to regroup a little bit, but I'll still stay involved in the town. But I leave with just really tremendous people still there, and a couple additional folks to help them will be great. But I think this group works really well. I hope the town continues to embrace it, because I think it's, 23 amendments in the last 5 years is pretty good record, so.
Well, if you feel that you miss it so much, you just come back. Even if they're at 10, we can even add another person to get you back on.
One of
just
the
so you
task
know.
force members said, well, you're leaving, but can you still come to the meetings?
Yeah.
So, thank you all.
Well done.
Don Emerson, I almost felt bad having you at the other end of that, and then I was like, nah, he'll just get to listen to it. Captive audience. So Don Emerson, if you'll introduce yourself and.
Sure. I'm Don Emerson, 905 Herringbrook Road. I was invited to be a member of the Vision Zero Task Force, or advisory committee, by the Cape Cod Commission some 2 years ago, I guess, and I was happy to accept. I wasn't accepting as a representative of the town of Eastham. I wasn't appointed by the board. I was invited by the commission, and it turned out I was the only resident of Eastham who was there. But I don't think I didn't speak for the town. I spoke from my experience as a transportation planner over multiple decades, and shared that with the group. So thanks for the opportunity to come and update you on what's happened since a year ago when we spoke about this, and maybe to offer some thoughts on some suggestions to you on things that the town could do to move this forward. So if we can move to or can I shift slides here? I guess maybe, no? Is there there it is, okay. So the goal of the Vision Zero effort, both on the Cape, statewide, nationwide, is to eliminate fatalities, serious injuries on Cape Cod roads and highways by 2050. Now, the dates and the numbers here are chosen by the Cape Cod Commission. That's where we came out, but that's the ambition. It's a tough goal to meet, but worth striving for, and with an interim 50% reduction by 2035, just less than 10 years away. The plan that was adopted by the commission a year ago, just about a year ago, identifies, they looked at all of the roads on the Cape, roads and highways, identified based upon data. There was a lot of data involved in looking at where accidents had taken place, where people provided input saying, well, maybe there hasn't been an accident here, but it really seems dangerous to me, through some interactive mapping, that a lot of public input, public meetings and so on. So they identified those roadways. They provided recommendations Cape-wide as well as town-specific on things that might be done. Those are some engineering steps that could be taken, modifying this particular intersection or this particular interchange. But they went beyond realizing that it's not just the roads that we need to address, it's the behavior of the people who use the roads, whether they're driving or walking or riding a bike. So the recommendations included enforcement, included education, they included what can we do to promote better practices, better use of the facilities that are there. And then they looked to the towns. We talked about this a year ago, to say, the commission saying these aren't our roads, these are town roads, these are state roads. And so we can pass upon some ideas, and hopefully the towns will then pick up the mantle and run with them. Okay, so what's happened? The plan was adopted in June 2025 by the commission. The commission is moving forward on some implementation kinds of activities. I think important to the town here is that they have programmed almost $600,000 in the current fiscal year to help the towns purchase road safety equipment. That might include signs, the signs that say, here's the speed limit, here's how fast you're going, those kinds of things that we have some in the town, that they will, under this, buy those signs. And I think the intent is they would provide them to the towns with the expectation that the town would do the implementation, would install or whatever was involved with that. So given that there is money in the town budget for those kinds of signs, maybe here's an opportunity to leverage that money that you've already budgeted to help do more. And then they also have adopted a planning work program that continues what they can do with supporting safety audits, technical support and engagement to the towns to carry on with the implementation phase. As I said, very data-driven, and this is just the tip of the iceberg, but I think it's worth sharing with you. Eastham, one of the smaller parts of the Cape in terms of population and traffic and vehicles, but nonetheless, over the 6-year period that they looked at, almost 800 crashes in the town, only 2 fatalities, 20 serious injuries, so we're maybe not as impacted by crashes, by serious injuries and fatalities. I should define what they mean by serious injuries. Serious injuries, as used here, are those that lead to a life-changing event. So someone survives a crash. They are not a fatality. But an example would be if they're paralyzed. From that point forward, the rest of their life will be very different from what it was prior to that incident. So that's a fairly significant kind of crash. I think all of the crashes, the 798 shown there, 130 a year, 1 every 3 days in Eastham, they all involve some trauma, some property damage, perhaps trips to the hospital, perhaps injuries that are not serious, they're not life-changing, but nevertheless, there may be very significant for the person, the people involved in that. And this is 6-year data through 2023. This continues. I mean, this is just cribs from the headlines of the CapeCod.com this year in Eastham to show that stuff is happening out there that is not good. Cars and trucks are colliding. We are having rear-end collisions on Route 6. There's a couple of serious incidents here, just here in June on Route 6, people taken to the hospital. These may not be fatalities, they may not be serious injuries, but for the people involved here, there is pain, there is trauma. This was not what they expected was going to be their day when they set out on the road to do what it was that they intended to do. And so I think it's important we think not just about fatalities and serious injuries, but crashes in general. So my suggestions to you, whoops, let me go back one. The plan had some specific recommendations for Eastham, had some general recommendations for the Cape that would apply to the towns in Eastham. Seems to me it would make sense to get a group of people together to look at those recommendations, to evaluate them, perhaps identify some better ideas than the ones that their consultant with the benefit of public input came up with, and put together some lists of priorities for the town. I called it a group. I don't know that it's a group or a task force or a committee or what it is, but to move the ball forward, to do something here in Eastham to run with this and see where we can take it. It could be a staff effort. It could be a citizen-driven effort. It could be a hybrid effort. I'll leave that for others to think about what those choices might be. But it seems like by the end of the year, something ought to be able to be put forward on what gets this going. And then, given what's happening on Route 6, and you saw the headlines, and the data showed that more than half of the crashes in Eastham are on Route 6. That's a state road. And maybe this is happening already, I don't know, but it seems like there ought to be some reaching out to MassDOT and the state police to see what we can do in the short term to remedy what is happening out there. When I think about, I think of things that could be done with paint, that could be done with with rumble strips. Not a lot of money, not a lot of time, but they could perhaps have a big effect. And then finally, and I mentioned this before, take full advantage of the funds that the commission has already programmed to leverage the money that is already in the budget. So I'll leave it there unless there's any questions.
The board, do you have questions? Jerry?
No, it's, I would imagine you're thinking you would want I guess, some connection, whether it's a group or a person to connect with your group to find out what's happening and what funds you have and what kind of things you offer to the town to make roads safer, generally is what you're looking at. And I appreciate you coming forward and bringing this to our attention. I would imagine one of the things that we would have to do, we clearly would work with our police chief to take a look and see what's up, what he sees, and what kind of things happen. But this is a good thing for us to think about and move forward. And I appreciate you not representing Eastham on the commission, but being from Eastham and bringing it to our attention. It's worth this guy. And we are looking at changes for Route 6 and trying to get it done in terms of when we're going to be digging up Route 6 for the wastewater and so forth. So this is an opportune time to take a look at it.
Yeah, I'm aware of Paul's efforts on that and admire the effort and the time and the cost and so on involved in that. And I guess what I'm suggesting here is we can't wait for that to be done. There are things we can do now that don't cost a lot of money to make things safer out there, whether it's for drivers or bikers or pedestrians. And I'm sure you're hearing that from many others. You heard it from this gentleman at the outset of the meeting. When I talked to my neighbors about Herringbrook Road and Samoset, often the conversation goes to speeding, and I think it's a town-wide issue, and it's a tough one to crack. We can't put it all on the police for sure, but there are perhaps other avenues to reach out and try to influence in whatever way we can people's use of the roads.
Hope?
Thank you. And I think it's it's obviously something we should do, especially if there are resources available to us, both data resources and monetary resources. We should take a hard look at both of those and see what we can avail ourselves of to increase safety in the town. Again, I'm going to look at Rich. I don't know what this means, if this is a group or a town, or there's staff that need to be involved, so I'm not sure how this gets implemented,
Right.
But what you're presenting to me is a valuable resource, so.
Yeah, I think if it was a citizen group that was doing this, they would need access to the police and Public Works and Paul to talk about their perceptions and maybe look at accident reports. And I mean, there's data out there that I'm relying upon headlines. I don't have any information on what the cause of that was or what the outcome of that was, but it's enough to tell me we should be doing something.
Yeah, I think this probably is a staff effort, but obviously we can hold workshops, and Paul has done a good job over the years on different workshops on items of community interest. So I think it's a staff effort to start, and then maybe a couple of workshops to get some input from the community, let them know what's going on, and certainly can incorporate Dave's comments from earlier. We do have an intersection improvement program that's been in place, and other than the stop signs we hadn't done too much, but had some priority intersections because there was some expensive engineering on some of it, so that kind of stalled. But some of them aren't expensive engineering projects, and we can at least move forward on those. So I think it's a staff effort to kind of revive some of these issues and move forward on them.
Right. I mean, I mentioned paint, and I think a lot can be done with that. When I drive on Herringbrook Road in the rain or in the fog, I can't see the center line because it's faded. We have stop signs, but no stop lines, which kind of reinforce each other. You have a stop sign and you know where to stop. We have stop lines and no stop signs. At the traffic circle with Orleans and Eastham, a lot could be done, I think, to rationalize the flow, where I've had several very close calls, with some paint. We don't need to, we expect it will be rebuilt at some point in time, but in the meantime, what can we do with low cost, quick response kinds of things?
Bob?
No, I agree. It's kind of the whole low-hanging fruit thing, but, and the staffing of that, I mean, they would have access to Chief Bohannon and looking at the data and trying to figure out where the other half of those accidents are, if there's, some common theme, if we're talking about Nauset and Old Orchard or whatever. So I just, if the staff can get something done on that, I think it would be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really despise tourist season because the traffic is awful, and I've heard about these accidents, and you hear sirens, and it is a burden that we bear every year, and we are working on it with the Route 6 redesign, but that's going to take some years. I appreciate you mentioning the rotary, because painting a rotary is rather low cost, low stakes. It would be done through the state, obviously, but I'm going to write that down because I want to track them down about the rotary anyway. And we'll bring this into our goals. I am wondering, so I know we have the climate action plan, and no one needs to answer this right now, but I know the commission has done work on car trips and the climate, and I feel like there's overlap between reducing car accidents and increasing walkability, bike access, public transportation, and that realm. So I'm hoping that in these discussions we can have some overlap of goals. Yeah.
And it's a multidisciplinary effort. I mean, I wouldn't suggest that you rely upon the chief for this by himself.
Right.
I mean, it does cut across multiple lines
Yeah.
to bring together. And if I can contribute in any way, certainly happy to be part of it where you think that's appropriate.
I mean, I might track you down to serve on a different committee, but now that you're before us.
Okay,
Thanks,
you.
Don.
Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate the work that went into that. Okay, now we're into administrative matters. Voluntary surrender, voluntary restaurant all alcohol license.
Right.
Bistro 41.
Right, this is pretty open and shut, that I think they're stopping service. So I move that we accept the voluntary surrender of restaurant all alcohol license number 08243-RS-0364, A&R 401 State Highway LLC, doing business as Bistro 41.
Second?
Any discussion? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope, it passes. On to committee appointments, reappointments, and resignations. So we have in our packet a list. I would like to thank the search committee and the select board for their tireless efforts in getting, and all of the people willing to serve.
Right.
I feel like this was the first year that wasn't a slog trying to fill vacancies. And so I'm really pleased with all of the people who want to serve again.
Yeah, would you like I think we can do the committee reappointments that are on page
Yes.
64 all
All
one
together.
time?
Yes, all together, please.
All right, I move that we reappoint the members of the committees listed on page 64 of our packet for another term on their respective committees.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
See, Dave,
Passes.
you're on it again now.
And so, Rich, you gave us some background.
Yeah, there's actually,
Other,
there are actually three reappointments of individuals beyond the three-year term.
oh, that's what that is. Thank you, Jerry. Do you want individual motions? All-
Yeah, I would gladly make I think that I have to ask, are there any other, because the charter allows us to reappoint someone beyond the three-year term if there's no one else who's qualified to come in again. Are these clear? As far as I can tell, we don't have anyone else in line to
Terming out,
want to do
nobody's
that?
terming out, yeah.
I don't believe we have anybody else lined up for these.
Anyone, so that we're cleared to reappoint these individuals beyond the three-year or two-year terms. It looks like the Housing Authority is 2 years. So I will move that we reappoint Carolyn McPherson to the Affordable Housing Trust, Henry Lynn to the Forest Advisory Board, and Phyllis Coral to the Human Services Advisory Committee.
Second.
All those in, any discussion? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. Appointments. Jerry, would you like to make another motion
I've
for
looked
us?
at, sure, we want to do both of them both at
Yeah.
the same time?
Yeah.
Sure, I move that we appoint Steve Wickland to the Recreation Commission for a term beginning July 1, and appoint Marjorie Klein to the Council on Aging. Her first-year partial return begins would end on June 30th, 2027.
Second.
Any discussion? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. Okay.
So we have
Resignations?
Resignations, and we have one to add, right? Mary's,
No, I mean, yes, but
Yes, we do.
yeah.
are we can add it?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. I move we accept the resignations of Carol DeBona from the Council on Aging, Rosalind Diamond from the Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority Board, and Mary Nee from the Zoning Task Force.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Other You're free.
The lifetime appointment is gone.
Other appointments, we have, as an informational item, Finance Committee voted to appoint Ron,
Manu.
thank you, for another term on the Finance Committee. Do we need to do anything with terms ending?
We don't do anything in the terms, I just let everybody know that I have written letters for all of them.
Thank you.
I have not done the resignations yet, though.
Wow. It's a lot.
Thank you.
It's on your bill. Come.
How much?
All right, so the next appointment is going to be to the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund Management Board, Shana Brogan.
I move we appoint Shana Brogan to the Cape Cod and Islands Water Protection Fund Management Board.
Second.
Any discussion? No. All those in,
I'm happy to serve on behalf of the town.
Thank you.
Discussion.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? passes unanimously. All right, now we're on to select board committee assignments. And so in the past, we have, it made sense when I came on. I somewhat lucked out and just kind of got the committees that I had already been most familiar with. And now that Amy is not with us and we have Hope, and I have a couple committees that maybe Hope would want. I didn't know if we wanted to haggle over these. I will note that the Affordable Housing Trust is a member that is expected to attend the meetings, participate, and vote. So it's not just it's not a liaison, it's an appointment. And so I asked Hope if she was interested, but Jerry or Bob, if you have any burning.
I will pass. Check.
Jerry, do you have thoughts?
Thoughts?
For the Affordable Housing Trust?
Hope that you don't want it?
No, I do. No, I
You do?
I do.
That's fine. I'm not going to.
But we didn't, but if you wanted it, we could.
No, that's fine.
Go for it.
I think my thought, Suzanne, would be, is there any issue, any one of Amy's that Hope doesn't want? Are there ones that others have that Hope has been involved with or knows and would prefer to have? So I'm fine with what I have, but I'm willing to change stuff if something I have is something you've been involved with, Hope, that you want. That's fine.
Maybe it's just me and Hope.
I have two, so strategic planning and the Board of Health
Yes.
are the two that I'm most familiar with. So I would be happy to do that unless you want to continue. But I had another question, and I just don't know. It has elementary school under Amy.
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't that be, you've done so much
Oh,
work.
Sure.
Shouldn't that be Jerry?
Jerry
I
should
can,
maybe
no,
take that.
that's
It seems
true.
to make sense to me.
I can take, especially if you're taking some others, I'll gladly
Is that-
put the elementary school.
Does that make sense to you?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So is someone else taking notes about this? You are, thank you.
Thank you, Erica.
You could have Board of Health.
Okay.
And we could trade Open Space Committee because that's kind of under Conservation Commission.
Yeah.
Sure, that makes sense.
And then you could, if you want Strategic Planning Committee, I suppose I could take Library Trustees.
How about recycling?
All right.
Library trustees, whatever.
I mostly was just picking the ones that would be the easiest for me to keep up with.
Okay. No problem.
But I'm not. Yeah. Can I take
Okay.
Library Trustees? Okay.
All right. I don't think we need a vote on that, do we? We just this is what we do. This is our assignments. All right.
We do need to let the search committee know that if we could get this liaison list again, once it's been updated, and then if someone would be so kind as to send it to the search committee, you'll do that,
yes.
Erica. And then also, at some point, I don't know if we should consider the Tea Time Committee being thanked and disbanded.
Well,
I know it's not entirely on the agenda, but it's
it's not on there. I guess we could probably, Suzanne, my advice would be it's probably best if we want to look at it, the question of disbanding the Tea Time Committee would be for an agenda item so that we can vote on it to disband it. And I imagine, is Scott the chairman of that still? Who's the chair of that? You?
I don't think it's me. I think if it was me, it was not me the moment I came on select board.
That's right.
But we haven't.
I believe it
Oh,
was
thanks.
Karen
I
Strauss.
was wondering if it was Karen.
Oh,
And
Karen's the chair?
possibly
All right.
Karen would agree on it.
Carolyn looks.
Yeah.
Respectfully, I think you just need a motion to appoint.
That I was wondering about that. I'll take a motion to appoint Hope to the Affordable Housing Trust.
Second.
Second, okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's an
It
appointment.
like-
That's an appointment, right.
Anyway, we don't need to solve the tea time committee question. It's just under my liaison lists, and they don't meet and haven't in years. So, well, their work, we can discuss it at a future meeting. I will add it to the list. Any other questions about liaison?
No.
Okay. And we are going to move on to the Outer Cape Select Board collaboration.
Collaboration,
There's a
yes.
memo in the packet, and Jerry, I'm going
Right.
to let you.
We raised this at the meeting we had in May at the library, and Jamie raised some issues on this, but a brief hope, and Suzanne, you weren't there. The four, at the time, chairs of the Outer Cape Select Boards got together and said, we're all facing the same kind of budgetary pressures. So there are ways that we can try and encourage cooperation, collaboration, and so forth to try and pool resources to reduce costs. And the idea was to have a meeting of all four select boards, along with the town managers or town administrators and/or their designees, to get together and take a look at and encourage collaboration. Now, we purposely decided, we're not going to say we're going to merge and eliminate the police department, the fire department, DPW, but let's look at some of the lower hanging fruit and just give encouragement to say this is a policy we're in favor of, and then potentially appoint a group of one member from each select board and a designee from each town administration to go ahead and start talking with the idea that it is just select board encouragement to do it. It's up to the town administrators to kind of look at things that they think that they can and can't do, but we want to keep that encouragement and saying it's all four select boards are behind it. So this is an attempt, and this is a letter from a facilitator who's familiar with the Outer Cape, lives in Brewster, grew up in Truro, I think, and this is a chance to say, we're willing to discuss it. Will anything come to fruition out of this? I haven't the foggiest idea what happens when you get together and you have to look at governance, when they figure out things they want to work on, and it could be all four towns cooperating, it could be 2 towns or 3 towns cooperating with each other where there's needs. Kind of telling the citizens of Eastham we're looking at ways to try and reduce costs. And this is an attempt, and I would urge you to say, let's do this. It could be just a waste of time, but it's likely some things positive will come out of this. The facilitator is excellent. I mean, at least as far as I've seen, and Jamie knows her and said she's excellent. And let's see what we can get out of it. It would be one day. It would be a meeting probably on a Saturday for 2 or 3 hours. And my view, it's worth the shot to try and see if we can cut some costs. And Rich is the one who really gave me the idea to do it, because he's worked with some town managers. Suddenly, we got an agreement, but I'm not sure my select board will go with it. So this is one of those where the select board's behind it. So go ahead, town manager. But so my hope is that we do this. I talked to Rich. It would be, the cost is $4,000. It would be $1,000 for Eastham. He thinks we can pull that into the budget. So my view is, let me go back to these guys and say yes, and then we'll turn it over to the current chairs. The chairs, 3 of the 4 that met in May are no longer chairs of their select boards, but they're still on them. So there you go. I don't know if we need a vote on, well, yes, I think we do need a vote to say, yes, we want to participate or not.
So I'd like to make a motion that we participate in this workshop for looking at efficiencies and resource sharing across the 4 Outer Cape towns, as Jerry mentioned.
A second?
Discussion, I have a question, but
Well, the
This-
discussion,
this-
I think the discussion is that this would be a meeting, so they would call all 4, it'd have to be recorded, public, open meeting, and
would it have to
Clearly-
be, could it not be a workshop? I mean, it would be,
we'll still be together doing it. I think it has to be a meeting and recorded, because it'd be
could be a
5 of us.
retreat.
Could be a workshop, but it still need to be noticed.
Still have to be a notice and so forth. Yeah, but
Minutes.
probably could be a workshop. But we would then, now I suddenly lost my train of thought, what was I going to say? But this would, we would make an effort. Part of this thing is, at least from, I think, my perspective, is we set policy, the select board, and the town administrations run the town and get things implemented, which is why there would be there. And I think that would be, this would be more of just encouragement to them to let's do it, see if you can find anything that works. And it's got to work. I mean, you run the town, so you have to get something that's going to work. I don't run the town, so I don't know if this would work or not. It might sound like a good idea, but it would work. And so that's the thing on this and why it's set up that way. And Truro raised the same issue of policy versus operations and so forth, which is why we had Hope rewrote, said what she's going to do with a questionnaire and try and narrow the meeting down so it can go forward and get a resolution so that the towns can have a platform, in a sense, to go forward and try and work together.
So we've got a motion on the table.
Yeah, I'm wondering,
Question.
do we know when? Because
We don't know when. We'll have to get everybody in line, and she will, Hope knows that, not Hope, this is Hope. Sky, who is the facilitator, knows that she'll be herding chickens or cats, whichever one you like, to trying to get a date, but what you'd want is to get it at a minimum 3 members of each town select board and, of course, a designee from town management at this workshop.
okay, and
Most likely a Saturday, I'm sorry, and most likely, and they would be looking at somewhere in Truro or Wellfleet, thinking that P-Town and Eastham are the bookends, so let's go something more in the middle.
and there's a pre-workshop questionnaire.
Which we would get.
That'll come or we
Well-
don't have yet.
I mean, it's in our packet, and there's a list of questions. And so I'm wondering, is the first step to being like, yes, we'll participate? And then I'm wondering what the next step would be.
Okay, first step would be, yes, we'll participate, and then we'll see if all the other towns, Wellfleet has voted yes, they would. Truro is still, will be taking it up next week, I think. Provincetown, I don't know if they voted exactly to participate, but so far, everything is that they will. The next thing would be, I think, the questionnaire that the facilitator will put together and send out to all 20 members of the respective select boards.
And then, Rich, do you have any, who's paying for it?
We have, consultant budgets of modest amounts that
Okay.
we have available funds that we would pay for this out of.
So is it a shared cost, or is Eastham paying for it, or?
Well, the total is 4,000, each
$1,000
town
a
is paying
town.
1,000, so we've got $1,000
Okay,
for our
alright.
piece.
Right.
So we have a motion and a second to participate.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm done with discussions.
Yeah, all those in favor? Sorry.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No.
All right. I will let them know. Suzanne, would you like me to continue being the point person on this or hand it over to our current chair?
You can continue to be the point person for that.
All right, thank you. All right, will do.
Continuation-y? There's a word that begins with a C. Okay,
Continuity.
that's the word, thank you.
You were there.
I was so close. Town manager's report.
So I'm working with Kayla. What I would like to do is, be a little bit more efficient in the town manager's report. So I'm envisioning a report once a month, the first meeting of each month, kind of recapping the prior month and a heads up on events coming in. And in the meantime, do verbal updates at each meeting. So I've got some verbal updates. As you know, we have a big period of transition. Shana started her first day in her new position as assistant town manager on Thursday, as did I as town manager. Been working on moving the offices around and purging some of the offices out of a lot of unnecessary paper and clutter, and that's going to keep going on for a couple weeks. Our new finance director, first day was today. I spent a good hour and a half with her on various matters, trying to get her up to speed, and spent some time with Shana and Kathleen on some HR issues and how we do our HR process. So I'm trying to slowly phase myself out of my former dual role to split it amongst the two of them and then focus on the high-level strategic plan and goals that we're going to be talking about in the summer. So I've also been reaching out to the community, did a presentation to the Massasoit Hills Homeowners Association at the library, which seemed to be well received, and I'm going to be going to EPROTA meeting next week. And for, as you know, on July 6th, we have an update on the strategic plan, so that's really the focus. I'll be going to the Housing Trust meeting on Thursday and talking with Carolyn on housing issues and really trying to formulate a housing plan and getting an update to our housing production plan. So those are all goals for the fall. And I have our new Finance Committee member coming in, I believe it's Thursday, and hope I want to get you the date, and in case you're interested in meeting at the same time, that might be a good opportunity to get a primer on the budget and the budget process, which I try to do when we onboard a new Finance Committee member. So I'll email you the date on that. We do have hitting a crunch with this wastewater project. We have deadlines of June 30th. We do have an extension pending on aspects of the SRF funding, which is difficult, and so I don't want to give them any excuse to not approve that extension. And so I am lining up all the ancillary contracts, we call them construction phase service contracts, from our design engineer and our owner's project manager, and we're hoping to have them by the end of this week. And we'll have a capital projects committee. This will be the only agenda item, is to give a recommendation of award on those contracts to the select board. And I'm hoping to have a special select board meeting. It can be any time. It could be a Zoom meeting to ratify that recommendation. The goal here is to get everything to SRF by the end of next week, well in advance of the June 30th deadline, so that when they're considering our extension for just a couple items, that they know everything else is wrapped up.
You know when we might have that meeting, when you might?
So I guess that was what I wanted to ask you was we could do it during the day via Zoom, or we could have it at the end of the day, a brief meeting in person.
This would be just similar to the one we had on June 5th or whatever day it was, June 4th.
Yeah, we have the tentative date is June 22nd.
Yes.
Yeah, does anyone?
So the date you're looking at is the 22nd, Suzanne? All right. I'm around. My grandson will be here, but so I don't know whether the evening one is fine, but I can
Talking the
Do
22nd?
whichever.
Yeah.
22nd is a Monday, yeah.
It won't be long. It'll be just this one item.
How does 11 sound?
Pardon?
11?
That doesn't work for us because we got that meeting,
Faye says, what meeting?
senior staff meeting.
That's at 9:30.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we could do 11 in the morning, or we could do, say, 4 in the afternoon, or 4:30, and it could be on-site or a Zoom participation.
I would vote for the afternoon.
Is that all right with you, Suzanne? You, I mean, you,
Yeah.
You're going to work with
Bob and I
I'm
are
gonna take that day
footloose
off,
and
so.
fancy-free.
That's right.
You have a job.
Oh, I'm gonna, the meeting will be short and I'm taking the day off anyway, so.
I don't know if you're footloose and fancy-free too or
I
not,
am.
but you are, okay.
What time, 4:30?
Why don't we do 4:30?
4:30 on the 22nd.
Got it.
So great, thank you for that. I also want to give you an update on the demolition of the property on Brownell Road. The building's been removed. The foundation still remains. It's being worked on this week. They were just over there today examining it and coming up with their plan for finalizing that work, and they anticipate it being done by the end of the week. And our farmers market will be starting up first time for the season this Friday. So we'll be doing some outreach and some marketing this upcoming week, so we'll be seeing some of that. And I was talking with Erica. We got a lot of great feedback on our Civics Academy. And so we're going to start to take that feedback and start planning and make it even better. So again, we're going to work back from town meeting and try to line up and rework a couple of the sessions and get that in place for the upcoming budget season and into the spring for town meeting. So those are some of the things that we got going on, and that's hopefully I'll have a nice written report template for you for July.
Thanks, Rich.
All right, upcoming and new agenda items or needed follow-up on previous items.
Just have a question. On Don's presentation, you mentioned staff could jump in and do something. Who would do that, and is there any time frame that you're thinking of, Rich?
I don't know the time frame because we have a lot of moving parts at the moment, especially with wastewater, but certainly DPW is going to be in on that. Police chief would be in on that, probably even the fire chief, Paul. And then we also are reaching out to DOT to get them to come to your meeting, particularly for the Rotary Update project. So, and then there's also a little bit of background I want to do of, Don mentioned some things that seem like they're relatively easy to do, line painting, striping, but rumble strips. But when you're talking about a state road, perhaps not so easy to get them to do it. But if we are digging up Route 6, not too distant future for the wastewater project, that might be an opportunity to say, hey, when we redo this, can we get a little bit of work? So I want to explore that, and that's up the DPW's alley a bit on that. So I have a few things to work out. And of course, Shana can help out with all this too, so with some coordination. So I think I just need a little bit of time to see what that looks like. But
Okay.
and you heard from Dave, the first thing this meeting, we do have an intersection improvement plan, and we actually have some money lined up for that. And so I'll work with Shana to double check with DPW as to where they stand and following through on that plan. So
Great.
I know his issue was on one of the intersections on that plan. So
And it'll probably come up through our strategic plan and goal setting for more information.
Currently, there are 2 intersections, I believe, that are on the strategic plan. I don't know that they're the specific one that was mentioned tonight, but maybe that could be revisited at that time.
no, I think the I forget what the 2 are, so I don't want to misspeak, but I'm almost positive one of them's Samoset and Herringbrook. And then the one Dave mentioned, I had talked to John about at one point. I don't think it's one of the priority ones. There's, I think, 11 left, 11 intersections.
There was a look on
And
it, to
this-
try and make it a T.
And, but I think with some sight lines and some pruning, perhaps we might be able to resolve some of the issues. But we'll go over there and we'll look at that and get back.
And I only have one more question. I know we're keeping us from adjourning, but repaving some of the roads based on the water project is still not done, and we've got people in my neighborhood up in arms.
So that's the last piece of the water project, and it's going to be scheduled for the fall. We have time of year restrictions for paving, can't do it in the summer. So we have to wait to the fall, but that will be the final project closeout, is doing all these, the remaining Phase 1 roads.
Great, thanks.
Well, I have one thing, just, okay, the Eastham night at the Firebirds is the 21st of July, Tuesday. I have the scout troop bring the colors. We have the kids going to go out and run with the birds. I have we're going to recognize DPW, fire, and police for what they did for Eastham in February 2026, and they're going to 3 people throwing out the first pitch. The fire chiefs and the head of DPW, there'll be 3 of them throwing out the first pitch. The Firebirds asked, would you want to have a face painter there? It costs $100. We've never had a face painter at the Eastham Days, so I will, unless you guys tell me otherwise, I'll just tell them no thanks on that. They wanted $400 for that, but I didn't want to do it on my own. If anyone has objections, raise them and we'll discuss it.
We'll put it on a future agenda for discussion.
For that? Okay, if you want, otherwise I'll just,
I mean, you told us the date is good, and
the date's good, everything's all set. The only question is, do we want a face painter?
we will put that on our
Okay.
maybe future agenda,
All right,
agenda items.
We'll do that, thank you. You looking for me to make a motion? I move we adjourn.
I second.
All those in favor?
The minutes, guys.
Oh, the minutes, sorry, my bad.
Oh, minutes?
Oh,
Minutes.
yeah, okay,
Oh,
so
yeah,
minutes.
I read the minutes,
Anyone
yes.
want to make a motion for the minutes?
I'll read. All right, what dates have we got here? We have the 1st and the 4th and the 8th. All right, I move we accept the minutes of June 1, June 4, and June 8.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No.
All right, they're all done. Now I'll move to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah. All right, we are adjourned.